Good evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and tonight we're going to take a look at the presentation Arctic Cold is on the horizon. And yes, it is on the horizon. You might be dressed like this gentleman in this picture here in about 7 to 10 days out from now. So let's get right into it. We'll get right into the explanations of the pattern that's about to evolve. All right, so initially, and I kind of mentioned this the other night, initially we have mainly a west to east flowing jet stream pattern. West to east. Generally what happens with this, we call this a zonal jet stream pattern. So see how these white lines are tightly packed closer together? That indicates generally where the jet stream axis is. And again, the jet stream is a very important element in weather forecasting in that it is utilized to determine basically the transport of cold and warm air into various latitudes. This upper river of air that allows colder air to move further south and then warmer air to move further north. All right, so initially on the initial analysis here on the 1st of December tomorrow, we have a west to east jet stream, a little bit of a higher wind speeds out off the Pacific Northwest, but really you notice it's fairly west to east. That's mild Pacific air going from the west coast all the way across to the east coast. On the temperature chart here at 5,000 feet on the right, you'll notice that the coldest temperatures, the purple shading here, remain well to the north over north central Canada. So all the coldest air remains locked in place to the north over Canada. The jet stream is pretty much west to east, which will not allow this cold air to come down very far to the south. Now on the 2nd of December, this would be Saturday, coming up on Saturday, first weekend of December, we're starting to see a little bit of a trough, an upper level trough that develops off the Pacific Northwest. And in general, though, the pattern remains fairly constant with a west to east flow across the United States. So that means we would expect more in the way of mild conditions. If we look over here on the temperature chart on the right, again, the coldest air indicated by the purple shading remains well up to the north over north central Canada. Now, the big changes really start around the 5th of December. And what we're expecting is this inverted U-shaped pattern that is building this ridge. It's an upper level ridge. It's building into the west coast of the United States at this time. And whenever something goes up in the atmosphere, it must also come down. So we have this huge ridge building into western Canada along the west coast of the US, and then in return we get this deep trough of lower heights, upper level heights here, and this is our trough. This type of pattern is known as a meridional pattern, where again you get a lot of waviness to the polar front jet stream. So what we have going on the 5th is more of an amplification of the jet stream. The large upper level trough will deepen over the northern plain states right in this location, the Dakota states and the Minnesota, while the upper level ridge builds over the east coast. So with the ridge here, a trough basically into the plain states into the Rockies, and another ridge on the east coast. With this ridge on the east coast, we would expect much milder conditions for southeast Virginia. All right. And then you look at the temperatures, they correspond to what I'm saying. We see this trough of upper level trough at 30,000 feet in the jet stream, the dip, and that's starting to allow this cold air to transport further south. And again, what goes up must come down. So here's the cold coming down on basically into the base of this long wave trough, and out ahead of the long wave trough associated with the upper level ridge, we have milder temperatures that are now flowing from the southwest into the Ohio Valley and the East Coast. Now, the 6th of December, this jet stream gets even more greatly amplified. This ridge, this upper level high, is parked basically over the Pacific Northwest, and this is a huge ridge, a huge warm upper level ridge. We're expecting very dry conditions, and most likely it'll be a Santa Ana wind into California, an offshore wind, and you're going to get most likely record highs on the west coast. In the meantime, look at this jet and how it's directing itself now from west central Canada all the way down into the midwestern US. and then the base of the trough curves out over the east coast into New England states. Okay, so there's a greater amplification of the jet stream by the 6th of December. As a result, you're getting much colder air that's starting to come from the far northern Canada area all the way down into the Midwestern U.S. Cold air is more dense, and therefore it's going to basically slide down this long wave trough right into the United States. The 7th of December, this jet stream is really amplified. We have this ridge just tapping into the cold air that's sitting up here over Canada and Western Canada and Alaska. In fact, there was temperatures in the negative 60s in Siberia. So it's just a matter of if this jet stream, and we get cross-polar flow, if we get this jet stream to tap into some of that really cold air from Siberia and then dump that into the U.S., this ridge is really bumped up. When this happens, that dislodges cold air, and the cold air spills down the length of this long wave trough, this very deep trough. We're looking at 540 decameter thickness line, possibly going all the way down to the Gulf Coast states at this point. As a result of this deep trough over the Midwestern and Eastern U.S., this cold is allowed to readily infiltrate all the way down into the Midwest and towards the East Coast. Moving on now to the 8th of December. Now we're in a full Arctic outbreak mode. This is going to be quite a chill down from the mild conditions that we're experiencing right now, as this long wave ridge is really amplified. As that bumps up further up and builds this ridge, down comes the cold air into the base of this very well-established long wave trough. Here's your Arctic air pouring down into the base of the trough. It's heavier and denser. It wants to flow downhill. That's exactly what it's doing in here. So this is quite impressive, this pattern. The 9th of December, the cold continues. You still see an upper level low now positioned over south central Canada. The ridge is still in place over the western U.S. You got these stronger areas of the jet stream known as jet max that are pouring down through the base of the trough. This cold air is just funneling straight down towards the mid-Atlantic region and southeast Virginia at this time by the 9th. We do need to watch for storm development off the East Coast, somewhere between the 8th and the 15th of December. That frequently happens when you get this really deep long wave trough that comes down. This little secondary area of higher jet speeds, this is associated with what's known as a subtropical jet stream, which generally blows from west to east further south in latitude, usually about 30 degrees latitude, sometimes 30 to 35 degrees latitude. If these jet maxes were to stack on top of each other, you very well could get storm development, and that storm development usually occurs basically downstream of this long wave trough axis over in this area. So we'll have to watch to see if these two jet streams, the subtropical jet and the polar front jet, if these two jet maxes or higher wind speeds within these jets, if they do merge, that could result in a possible storm, and a pretty good storm at that, somewhere between the 8th and the 15th of December. So our long-range final thoughts. Boy, this pattern is going to get interesting. We have a major pattern change in the works, and that's going to take place next week. Arctic air will move into the eastern U.S. after the 6th of December, so we expect mild conditions to continue with highs generally in the 50s, occasionally getting up into the 60s at times during the daytime, but very mild, very tranquil, very benign type weather. We do expect a cold front to move through overnight, Thursday night into Friday morning, the 1st of December. Just slightly moderated cool downs, nothing major though yet. So once the heart of the Arctic air comes in after the 6th of December, we are looking at high temperatures that will be in the upper 30s to the lower 40s possibly, while low temperatures will be in the upper 20s to middle 30s during the coldest days. Okay, and that is generally associated with, again, this jet stream making this sharp amplification to a long wave trough. That's going to cause this cold air to spill south. All right, and then we're watching for possible storm development, as I mentioned, off the East Coast between the 8th and the 15th of December. Right now it's too early to tell whether it's going to be one particular storm or maybe two separate pieces of energy. maybe we have two different storms. Right now, this pattern, it's really too early to pinpoint locations and snowfall amounts and wintry weather, but it's definitely the right type of pattern to get the first major winter storm somewhere up the East Coast, anywhere from the Mid-Atlantic up to New England. So we are watching for that, okay? And then the cold pattern locks in for at least 10 days through the middle of December. So this cold pattern is not going to go away. Last winter we experienced a lot of cases where we get the really cold air to come in, and then the temperatures would moderate within a day or two, and it would warm up again. But as of right now, this pattern for December looks like we're going to see reinforcing shots of cold air, of Arctic air, once the Arctic air initially slides in after the 6th of December, right around the 7th. So the pattern's going to lock in pretty solid, the cold pattern, for at least 10 days. It's a matter of if we get little disturbances that round the base of this trough, whether that will be enough to kick off snow or wintry precip. There's a good possibility nearby that we could be looking at our first major winter storm over the period. Multiple forecast guidance is indicating this pattern change. So most of the computer models are in very good agreement that this change is in fact going to happen. The European model, the American GFS, the Canadian model, all of those models are indicating a much colder pattern for the eastern U.S., from the Midwest east, all the way through mid-December and possibly even further beyond that. So my main question is will it be a white Christmas this year for Southeast Virginia? You know, the climatology really is not all that great for white Christmases here, but who knows? You know, stay tuned for further updates. You never know with this kind of cold that's going to lock in. There's a good possibility that we could see some wintry precip nearby, somewhere between the 8th and the 15th of December. Now, check us out, where to find us on social media. It's been a while since I showed this slide. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There are our locations. You can also look me up on Facebook, Matthew P. Euler. Okay. And Instagram, there we are, Twitter, and then the Spot on Weather Weebly site, which I do. You have to click on news at the top for the latest blogs. I don't do blogs every day, but I try my best to get out there and do blogs every once in a while, especially when the weather goes active. You need more weather updates. Subscribe to Spot on Weather for the most accurate weather forecasts. And that wraps up tonight's presentation on the pattern change forthcoming. Remember, we're spot on weather. If we're not spot on, we're not doing it right. Have a great Thursday evening, everyone.